Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you all, depending on which region you're dialing in from, and welcome to day 2 of PEX Network's BPM Live 2020 online events. I'm your host, Jen Pham, and I'll be guiding you through the series of webcasts this week. For anyone who's attending for the first time, you should have already received the emails and links to all of the sessions, but in case you haven't, then check your email, spam folder, or you can download the agenda straight from the resources box for your own personal copy. Just as a reminder as well, all sessions are fully interactive, and so I encourage you to ask as many questions to our speakers as possible. For every webinar, we're sharing new content for you to download, and you can look at that in your own time, but make sure you don't miss out on your chance to grab them, especially the BPM report, which was actually released by PEX Network's very own editor, that's Alice Cloche. Okay, so yesterday, just a quick wrap up, we had 4 great case studies from Shell, AkzoNobel, KeyBank, and QuickBooks. In case you missed any of these, you can watch them now on demand using the links provided in your agenda. Next up today, we have another case study, Dresser Natural Gas Solutions, on how they're powering process visibility and savings with automation. And this session is brought to you by FlowForma. Speaking at this webinar today is Imelda Bettinger. She's a SharePoint developer at Dresser Natural Gas Solutions. Imelda holds 23 years experience working with SharePoint and other web development tools for large corporations. And we've also got Shay O'Connor, who is the Senior Vice President at FlowForma. Shay also holds over 25 years experience in the tech sector and is committed to helping corporate and enterprise organizations to empower their business people with no-code business automation tools. Without further ado, I'll pass you over to our speakers.
Thank you, Jen, and thank you everybody for showing up today. Today we're just going to have a chat between myself and Imelda about their experience, direct experience in their digitization and automation of their processes within Dresser Natural Gas Solutions. The way we're going to do this is we're going to kick off with a few questions and just get the chat going and get some direct responses and direct information from, as I say, the person who knows best, the person who's gone through it, Imelda. Can you tell us, Imelda, a little bit, just from a background point of view for the guys here who may not know about Dresser Natural Gas Solutions? Give us a bit of background and information on your role.
Sure. Dresser Natural Gas Solutions is a Houston-based natural gas provider. We create meters, instruments, and instrumentation and piping solutions for the natural gas industry. We've been around for about 120 years, and we were started in Bradford, Pennsylvania. We've been bought and sold by many different companies, but we are now independent, and we are just kind of taking on new technologies and helping use technology to build our company and build our business. I am a SharePoint web developer. I'm an administrator as well. I work on SharePoint development solutions, Office 365 solutions, and help and support, as well as working on reporting using Power BI particularly.
Very good. And you've a wealth of experience in that sector as well.
Yes, I've been using SharePoint since day one within 3 different industries: financial, and oil and gas, and a little bit of health industry as well. So I've been using SharePoint for a long time and seen it from how it evolved from its early on-premises versions to now the Office 365 version that gives you a lot more scalability and just cloud, redundancy, and just having that information in there that people can really depend on and use their tools anyway.
And the fact that Dresser have been around for 120 years, presumably they didn't have SharePoint at the start.
No, not at the start. But we do now, so you're definitely benefiting from it.
So just moving on from there, obviously, so you within your company, you would face, let's say, challenges and or scenarios that would have motivated you to look at a process automation tool. For the people listening who may be in this predicament, what can you sort of outline the challenges that you faced that motivated you to look at FlowForma?
So when I joined Dresser about 18 months ago, we were in the middle of a divestiture from Baker Hughes GE, and we were losing certain capabilities that were on the GE Networks platform of tools that we needed to actually replicate or make sure we could replace that process on our side. And since we had already started our divestiture and rebuilding of our IT network here, we went with Office 365. So that also gave me the opportunity to look at SharePoint as an option. I was very familiar with building workflows in the past with Office 365, a little bit more, a little bit basic, a little bit more just redundant, a bit harder because of the different versions of SharePoint. But once we were in Office 365, there's been a lot more opportunity to use third-party tools. So I went ahead and started looking at some options for workflows, and we needed another part of our actual challenge was being able to not necessarily mimic what they already had. We wanted to improve what the systems they had. They had about four processes already in place, and it took a long time for them to. They were older processes, and it took a long time to get any kind of changes done. So we took that opportunity to be able to sit down with the business and say, "Show me what you have. How can we? Where would you like to change this? How would you like to improve this?" And then start building something from, somewhat from scratch. About 50% of what we created was from what we already had, and then we were able to build and improve on that based on FlowForma.
And those sort of challenges that you just outlined there, the sort of the fact that, for example, changes would take a long time to implement. Why would that be the case? So is it down to I don't know, red tape, or is it down to coding? Is it down to hierarchy?
I was fresh to. I kind of started as a Dresser employee as opposed to any kind of really knowing a lot about the GE history. I was only able to kind of analyze it from a kind of a high level, but I was just told that they were processes that were built, I believe, in C# or I'm not exactly sure, but there was something that took a lot harder process, and that they took years to build. And then if our team needed a change, it was a 6-month type of request and think about it and then decide whether they're going to actually implement it, because it would affect the rest of the company that were using these processes. With us separating and having our own platform, our own kind of we kind of like to think of ourselves as a 130-year-old startup. We were able to kind of come up with some new solutions from scratch, use newer tools and new ideas, and using FlowForma was able to kind of help with that, because we can be much more customizable.
Yeah, so it's probably, is it fair to say that based upon your experience using or being surrounded by older legacy, tough systems, heavily coded systems, you knew what you didn't want as well as much as you knew what you wanted. It was like, I don't want that stuff again. Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
And having my background, I knew what I was coming from and what SharePoint was capable of to a certain extent. We kind of built even more so than that and expanded it. So.
Okay. I think, Jen, just going to pop into the next. We have a poll.
So we're going to take a poll to the audience, everyone, just so that we can understand better what your requirements are from your own business. So this poll is asking, what is your most important requirement for a process automation tool? Is that the ability to automate processes in-house? Is it the speed at which we can digitalize processes? Or is it integration with other systems? And then finally, is it strong reporting capabilities? I'm just going to give you all a moment to answer that there. And then we'll take it to the next slide for the results. Okay, it looks like the majority have gone with the ability to automate processes in-house, with almost half of you have provided that as a response. Coming in after that, it's the integration with other systems. And then at 15% each, we've got speed at which we can digitalize processes and strong reporting capabilities. Shay, over to you on your words.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Jen. Okay, Imelda, just moving on there. So you're at your position in Dresser where you know that you need to implement new systems, because basically you now have the opportunity to create these processes in new environments. What were the requirements then for your selection of a process automation tool?
I wanted to look at something that we would be able to implement pretty quickly. Install SharePoint. Install FlowForma within 30 minutes. So that's pretty quick. Another thing, we wanted to make sure it integrated, of course, with our current system, and we knew that SharePoint and Office 365 was going to be a platform we were going to be using. We were heavily pushing it throughout our company to I was already training people on Teams and SharePoint, and using all the cloud tools, using mobile tools. So they were already going to be familiar with that a bit. So we were able to kind of build on that SharePoint idea. And then we wanted to make sure it was usable, because I was going to be doing. I knew that I could create workflows and make sure that I can get some of the business users to be able to kind of learn a bit and be able to work on some changes as they went down the road, so that I wasn't constantly having to do all the changes myself. So it did allow people to be able to customize and build and make changes without me needing to be there as well. I mean, they need to be a part of it. Another part of it, our requirement, was making sure that we had we wanted it in a timely fashion, because we did have a time crunch. We only had about 4 to 6 months max to be able to replicate what we had from GE and build on our own system before we were going to be removed from that network. So we needed a tool that was pretty quick and easy for us to learn and implement. And I believe our first process we built within 30 days. Since then, we've had processes that we built within 2 days. Once you start learning how to use it, it's really a quick tool. So the speed of being able to implement it has been that kind of goes hand in hand with the speed and the ease of use. We also wanted to make sure that there was a company that was really supportive from day one. When you get the trial and kind of start talking with FlowForma, you get hands-on help to build your first workflow. And I dove in and just learned a ton from the support system. And even to this day, I mean, the support is really quick, really easy, really fast, really responsive, even with the time delay. And me being Houston and you being in the UK, it's fantastic. So that was really important for us to make sure that we had a good support team.
Yeah, I have to say it's always great to get that feedback. And it's interesting that you say that the first process, and that we would find this as a trend, the first process taking that sort of 4-week scenario, because you are getting up to speed with a new environment. You're getting up to speed with a new way of doing things, because FlowForma is quite different to, say, creating workflows in a Canvas-based system. A lot of things are done automatically, but you just have to know where to go. You have to know, it's like every new system, but the nice thing is, obviously, when you get the first one over the line, the rest kind of come in a lot faster. Sorry, did you find the feedback then from users after they got the first one over the line that the other ones just kind of made sense?
They did. We were able to definitely use some pieces. Like once we bit the first one, we knew there are certain fields that, certain values and stuff. They didn't really think about it ahead of time. And so we were able to kind of, a lot of it was like part of that 30 days was me doing business analysis as well as development, trying to figure out because I was a company, they were new to a new process that they wanted to improve. And so we were able to really take on and use what we learned from that first workflow to carry it on over to a couple other ones, because they were all one department. So they a lot of the fields were kind of related. We were able to, of course, use SharePoint tables, so like use lookup fields, and everything was now 4 different flows, use multiple, the same similar table. So things are very consistent.
Yeah. Well, and I presume you'd sort of advocate the fact that if you know your process, it's going to take you a shorter time to implement.
Correct. Yeah, we had about, like I said, we took about 50% of what we had and kind of built on top of that and kind of improved it for our team.
Yeah. Another sort of feedback that we would get, and I don't know if you can back me up on this one, but it's that the fact that because you can dive straight into FlowForma, start creating things, everything is usable. So in other words, don't, like in the old ways of wireframing things and coming up with sort of proofs of concept, whatever you put in, you can use, because you can just build on it all the time. Would you have felt that?
Yes. I would say, I guess with say like reuse. So when we created one, like we can pull out the workflow and show it to another team, like, another division that, we're doing this in one group. This is the same. You have a very similar process. Let me show you what we're doing from a graphical view. And then they would just kind of like, okay, yes, we need this piece. We need one other piece, or here are these players, or here's just part numbers, and really reuse some existing workflows again. So we've been doing that. We've actually done that. So.
But again, you can do it all in-house is the main thrust, and just ask us as you move along.
Correct.
What's the best practice
here? And then
here?
I can also have a business analysis, or an engineer, or even a document controller that is really hands-on with it, be able to take on that extra process of mapping things out, making changes, making value changes. Yes.
Cool. Yeah. No, it's great. I mean. Yeah, and it's funny, if you were to script your progress, it is exactly how you would want a new system that is cloud-based, that is intuitive and so on, to work with an organization. You're under time pressure. You wanted to use your own skill sets, and to get up and running fast was important, but to still have a good control, solid processes being able to be enacted or enabled within the organization.
Mm-hmm. And then if we had a question, we know where to call.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we always welcome that. It's always good fun. So just to get onto the specifics then of the types of processes that you would have created as part of the automation, can you tell us a bit more about these?
So we started replacing or replicating 4 different workflows for our manufacturing engineering department. That it was mostly documentation. They do a lot of changes in there within their engineering process, and everything has to be documented, and everything has to be approved. And so we did replace those 4. So there was related to manufacturing engineering. What's been really interesting though is, now that they created those initial 4, the main users, the head users, are kind of, I guess, more power users, have been coming up with more and more and more ideas for FlowForma. So definitely more work in the, which is good. We have also recently created our newest process has been creating a customer complaint form. It replaced the system, our existing. We had a system in place, which we still have access to, but we wanted something newer. And once they saw FlowForma could do this, we created a new version. It's going to be company-wide. We have it covering 2 different divisions right now, and then we'll be expanding it to the other 2 divisions as well once we get a little bit more information.
Sure.
One other one what I wanted to kind of touch on was we did an IT change management process. Well, we have a ticketing system, and we document our changes and that kind of thing, and any request. That was fine, but for bigger projects and for audit purposes, we needed to have a little bit more robust change manager approval process. Making sure we capture what kind of systems are being affected, what the changes are, and who's approving, and if it's related to, like if it's something related to financial data, well, then we get another approval. And so it's just all documented, and it's been working out really well. Which is great is, when it comes time for another audit, we can run reports off of that using Power BI and just be able to give the auditors exactly what they need in a nice pretty view.
Yeah.
As well, another workflow we did create recently that came out of our need for most of our staff working from home because of COVID. People took mostly, everyone has a laptop here, but they take their laptop home on a regular basis. But once they got home and were kind of quarantined and, we're working from home for the most part, we realized that people didn't have, keyboards and extra mice and monitors and that kind of thing. So we were able to put together a equipment and software request form that they can create. And once the approval's done, it just gets sent to our help desk, and they get their equipment within a day or 2. So it's been able to kind of workflow that pretty quickly together. So
yeah, it's funny. Obviously, every single person in the globe has been affected by COVID-19, and we have found that our existing customers, those who are used to obviously using FlowForma, one of the first things that they did during this was something along those lines, where any process that was either quite verbal or quite manual. So if it was somebody who was in an order form or that sort of thing. Yeah, exactly. When they went home, that's broken now, because you can't turn around to somebody, you know, across the partition and say, hey, I need a new monitor, or I have and it's just your working environment. We got a part of, like, straight away, we had a lot of requests from customers just even validating the fact that what's the best thing to do in these circumstances? You know, can we just dive in? And because they were used to, like, all of your processes up to this point have been completely to do with Dresser as a natural gas business. Yeah, exactly. And it was all about your solutions and how the inner workings. This was completely something you could never have planned for.
No.
And the nice thing is you can just turn around and start applying a nice rule to it, a nice visibility. People know where they stand. We got a lot of feedback from clients saying about that the comfort factor in being able to roll out types of processes that were showing that the organization were in tune with the fact that COVID is different, that we need to do things slightly differently regardless, that they could adapt to it. I mean, I presume that just the ability in this case to request from remote locations makes a big difference to people in the comfort factor.
It has helped, because there are some people that, you know, are a little bit more comfortable with coming into the office on like a couple days a week, or some days, some people that are, you know, a little bit older, you know, health wise, you know, they prefer to not be out in public as much. So they did request, you know, use this tool to request equipment, and or even just simply, you know, you like somebody comes in, you know, up to our IT field, and, you know, our desks, and asks for a bit of software or something, or sends an email. Yeah. They can just automatically just send it through the form as well. We added software included. So
yeah, and it's funny. One of the other feedbacks I got was that, and this would be from, say, not so much customers, would be from those people or those organizations who were investigating going down the digital transformation or the digital automation route. They were saying that all of a sudden, because they were all working remotely, their inbox started exploding with different information, and there was very difficult to categorize things and get a handle on things.
That's the thing. That's exactly it. So when you are seeing the similar types of questions that come through your inbox, you can start working. You can say, "Hey, let's build a workflow around it. And here's a form."
Very good. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Yeah. Something you mentioned there just about the IT change management, and it was something that not say piqued my interest, but this whole scenario of audits, and the fact that the difference between having a manual system and having a digitized system for audits, I'd say the impact is immense because everything's organized now. Did you found that
things were a little bit scattered, and so from when I was given the requirements and you know, working in IT, I understood that, but we didn't really have the best system in place. But you know, hey, we're using FlowForma. We got this tool right here. You know, let me see what I can build, and we were able to definitely bring in our IT management and some other key figures, and just kind of analyze what we needed and build it out. It was pretty quick. It was it's been working out pretty well as well.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I always love to see the different use cases and the different impacts that people didn't even recognize, that or even take consideration that the knock-on effect of this means that this other piece of my work is just made that little bit easier. It's always nice to get that feedback, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. There are people that do come to me knowing that they're working with FlowForma on a particular form. Maybe they're working on a couple of forms, or they only use one particular process, but have come to me with, you know, oh, how about I have an idea for this, or I have an idea for that. And it necessarily need to be a FlowForma solution. I can come up with another solution, like SharePoint based straight or something like that, you know, like, but Assless or something. But for the most part, you know, it's good to be able to see people using the tool and embracing it, and then coming up with also other business ideas for us to kind of build out and use. Great.
That's cool. That is very good. So just moving on there. So you've implemented a good few processes at this stage. What can you see? So people know the tangibility of the forms and so on, and you're operating and everything's going fine. But the outcomes then, so you've got an environment where you've got digital processes. What are the outcomes?
Number one, it's just everything is quicker. You're saving time. I mean, that's I've talked to a number of people. I mean, like our document controller that kind of runs most of the meters types of workflows that we have. She had a lot of manual processes that were taught that she had to do on a paper, like a hand paper notebook kind of thing, because the system that they had with NG was not completely what she needed, and that's why we were able to take what are you doing outside of this, and let's make sure that we incorporate it in a new system. So she's cuts about 15% of her time doing some extra manual work that she doesn't have to do anymore. Another thing is, because it's such an ease of use tool, before people didn't want to use another tool, and so processes took much longer to approve and to change for changes to get done through, for a whole process to run through. Now people don't, they have no problem with keeping SharePoint open, or seeing the SharePoint list of tasks, or getting an email, what's my task list, what's my next thing to do, and responding to that and moving processes through much quicker. So it is saving time.
It's funny, those outcomes. So I'd be responsible for this as well. But when you say to somebody, what do I hope to achieve by using FlowForma, by digitizing and so on, and it's all about efficiency, agility and time, but your outcomes are very real. So you're looking at these as in, this is an actual outcome. Now, whatever way you want to categorize it, here's real life situations where that person's after saving time doing X, Y, and Z. Those outcomes are incredibly real.
It's saving time, but it's also improving the business process times, because like I said, some process could take a month because people weren't doing what they need, or something was being held up for whatever reason, or they weren't going in the system to update the status. That work might have been done, but the status hadn't been changed. They can't go into the next step. They were having, I was told that, people are having to be like, okay, well, let's get your, approve this or approve that through emails and stuff like that. Well, now the system, like I said, it's much quicker. They don't mind being in it. They don't mind using it. They don't mind responding, because they know it's like, okay, well, yes or no, or, the approval, or here's my notes and let's move on to the next phase. Because we are tracking things. We are tracking how long it takes to have certain processes open and closed. So reporting on that as well, have that reporting, like, why is this one taking so long? That when you bring that up to somebody, they're like, okay, well, can you explain it? If there's no really true reason, things can go quicker, move quicker. So.
Yeah. And again, for me, it's the tangibility of the differences that are made. Like you say, like the document controller doesn't have to keep a separate logbook. I mean, that's a real life situation that nobody could have that on a presentation, but that's a direct impact of you digitizing their environment and their processes, that, hey, they don't have to keep a separate logbook. There's a percentage saving on that of time.
Correct. And it just kind of, just makes your job a little bit easier.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally think it's fun to use FlowForma.
It's great because we would get, we get organizations who, in general, like, they might start off with this one problem. They'll go, listen, if I solve this, we're sorted. And they're thinking of a solution. And then when they get up and running, because they wouldn't have had many digitized processes in their environment, they start going, hey, here's options. And for me now, I used to be a developer back in the day. And it took me forever to create things because I was coding everything. But to be able to turn around to somebody who has an issue and you go, well, here, I've put something together quite quickly. Would you think this would work? Like, to get feedback that you can provide a solution like that quickly and everything is just super.
That's extremely true. That's another thing I didn't even mention. When we're building applications, you can kind of build one part or one section, send that off to the user or the main person that's requesting, the manager or whatever, and get immediate feedback. You're like demoing a piece of software live right then and there. And then you can, let's move on to this next piece and build from it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you just know if you're going to code something, you're never going to get that opportunity ever.
No, it's been pretty nice.
Yep, just jumping back in for that second poll. So what outcomes would you like to gain from digitalizing business processes? That's a question to our audience there. The answers that you can choose from are: users only see what they need to see, bottlenecks are found quicker, one source of truth, increased efficiency and productivity. Or if you have another answer, then feel free to include that into the Q&A box with your answers, and we'll have a look at that from there. Just reading that out again to provide more time. What outcomes would you like to gain from digitalizing business processes? That's one, users only see what they need to see. Bottlenecks are found quicker. One source of truth, increased efficiency, and other, if you want to type that into the Q&A box. Okay, I'm just going to push over to the answers now. Looks like the majority of you have gone straight into increased efficiency and productivity, and that's 77.8% of you who's answered that. Coming in after that, it's bottlenecks are found quicker, and a small percentage of you is one source of truth. Okay, back to you, Shay.
Thanks, Jen. So, Imelda, what's next? So on your agenda, I know this is a moving feast in regards to an ever-evolving arena and platform that you have now that, hey, you're up on a road, it'll probably never stop moving. But what is next immediately for you guys?
Immediately, like I think I mentioned before, we are going to be building out, continuing to build out the customer complaint workflow. It's all custom based on the business unit and who the team members are, as well as the products, and so it is a little bit more customized to the divisions. So I'm working on to get the data sets for the two other business units as well. So we'll be building that out together, and then testing and rolling that out pretty soon. We have a couple of meters, a couple of processes that Meters is using that our other division, pipeline division, which is in Bradford, wants to take advantage of. And so we're also going to be rebuilding and basically repurposing some of their processes as well, which is what is so great, because they've been able to see what one division is doing, and, oh, wait, that works. That's great. We can certainly use that and leverage that. Let's see what the workflow looks like. If we need to make any kind of edits or changes, make sure we have our data that we needed relevant to our particular business, and you pretty much have another workflow. It's pretty easy. And one thing I mentioned before also is using Power BI. We started using Power BI. So some of our older forms, it wasn't really brought up that, reporting, but I'm starting to work on that as well. But our customer complaint, from day one when we started using it, our managers wanted reports. So been building Power BI reports on that, based on how old a complaint is, how what steps and what stages it's on, and who's responsible for it, and you're able to see things much quicker. I put that report inside of their team's dashboard, and they can go to it. They don't even have to log in, and they don't have to see SharePoint if they don't want to. They just go straight to this report that's got a lot of visuals on it. So.
I was just going to say about data validity. It's one thing that people, not say they ignore, but when you're dealing with workflows and transfer of information, that the data that's passing in between all of the actors in that process, because you've got your digital forms there, you can make sure that data is valid, that it is actually solid data. Hence, your reports are more concrete.
Exactly. That's what I was going to add. For having FlowForma be sitting on top of SharePoint, which is 365, that's then tied to Power BI, all in 365, and everything is interconnected. we can go data to data correctly, and and then just report on it, and it's exactly the same data. So it gets updated on a nightly basis, or whenever I say update and sync, and it's been working well. And we know that that's the same data. I mean, we're not taking it exporting from a Excel file and some kind of manipulation. I mean, it's just straight feed. So it's been really helpful.
Yeah, and it was funny from the last poll that the guys referring to the fact that efficiency is a big focus for them. When you have your digital processes in place, you're gaining efficiency, okay, on your day-to-day operations, but you're also gaining efficiencies in your compilation of those reports because all the information is solid.
Exactly. I mean, I was given examples of, okay, this is the reports that we're creating in Excel that take them like weeks, to put together for a monthly meeting, quarterly meting.
Yeah.
Okay. I looked at it. I was like, okay, let me see what I can do. And I could build it automatically on the fly now. And you can see any kind of given, pull up what you need. Yeah.
We get that feedback quite a lot. And it's one of those hidden impacts of this whole digitization. That's fantastic.
I have a bit of a database background for number of database work in the past, but from a web perspective. So this kind of lets me kind of do a little bit of that, and I can see how it all fits together so much better. I mean, it's amazing the tools that we have now compared to 15, 20 years ago.
Brilliant. I love it. Thanks, Imelda. That's been excellent. I'm just going to pass back to Jen. Thanks a million, Imelda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shay and Imelda, for that great conversation. So yeah, we do have a couple of minutes for the Q&A. I'm going to go straight in. There's a question directed to you, Imelda. Our processes often need changes. Could I make these changes in-house with the FlowForma tool?
Correct. Yes, it's all web-based. You can work wherever you want. From an IT perspective, yes, I do the bulk of the setting up workflows, but we've had a number of our business team and engineers be trained to a certain extent, not as much as I do, to be able to make their own changes as well. It depends on what the changes are, but yes, it's certainly possible.
And I think this is a follow-up question. How long does it take to digitalize a process with FlowForma?
So like I said, the very first one I did with a little bit, with a learning curve, of course, and in business analysis of the current processes we had, it took about 30 days, literally about 30 days. The most recent one I did when it was related to COVID, and also actually the request form. Yeah, the IT request form. It was 2 days. I just pretty much pulled what we needed, put it together, and then built it and tested it, and we launched it in a couple of days. Very quick.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, Shay, this question's directed to you. Could I enable my suppliers to input to processes digitalized with the FlowForma tool?
Okay, so you do have that opportunity. There is a feature in FlowForma called Engage. It's quite unique, where you can engage third parties in the exact same process, and there's no extra learning. It's basically you decide that step is for an external user, and you can actually decide if that external is anonymous. So in other words, it could be somebody making a query or even enrolling for a job or anything like that, or else it could be secured. So the secured one, it validates credentials via either Google, Microsoft, or Facebook. So yeah, you can.
Okay, I've got another question here. He's asking, so he's got a lot of staff in remote areas. Would the FlowForma tool work for remote users?
I think I'll take that one. So, and it's funny, we have a lot of that naturally now because of COVID, but we would have a lot of customers who have offices in disparate locations and or workforce that's spread out. So we do a lot, say, the examples I'm thinking of are construction projects where people can be spread out over sites, etc. But disparate locations, 100%. The great thing is, and Imelda knows this is true, because you've standardized your process on digital forms through FlowForma, you're going to get a consistency of information coming in no matter where the users are.
That's correct.
Cool. So before we wrap up, I've just got time for one more question. I know we've got quite a lot through, so we'll try and get back to you when the webinar closes directly. Final questions asking, perhaps this one's for you, Shay. What are the technical requirements for using FlowForma's process automation?
Okay, so I mean, as Imelda was saying earlier on, download FlowForma within 30 minutes, had it up and running. So basically you need Office 365. FlowForma is an app that sits on top of Office 365, so it takes about a half an hour from the store to get up and running. You just need SharePoint admin rights. After that, basically your doors are now open, so you can start creating your processes straight away. You don't need any other technical requirements bar Office 365.
Okay, so thank you so much for answering those questions, and thank you both for joining for this fireside chat conversation. I'm just going to wrap up the webinar here. Do you have any final words, Imelda or Shay?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, well, just from my point of view, and it's just if anybody wants to try out FlowForma, do have a trial. So it's a 14-day trial that you can do. You can download the app in Microsoft Store. We can do demos. We can, and as Imelda was saying earlier on, once you engage us, we're really keen to show you how FlowForma would fit your organization. Not how we think it's going to fit, but we specifically look at what you're trying to achieve and will help in showing you the results so that you can evangelize about what you're able to do. So contact us anytime, and we're ready and willing to help. I just want to take the opportunity of thanking Imelda as well for getting up early in Houston and going through the webinar with us. Thanks, Imelda.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been fun.
Thank you so much, Shay. Thank you, Imelda, both for joining us today. You've heard Imelda's case study at Dresser Natural Gas Solutions, or at least an insight into how she works with FlowForma. If you want to hear other case studies, there is more downloadable content within the resources list, so feel free to take a look at those. There's also a white paper and product brochure in case you want to download that too. And of course, our BPM report hosted and published by PEX Network. Okay, next up we have another case study. It's Farmers Insurance bridges the agile gap with process operationalization. That's with David Lutz at Farmers Insurance, and that's in the next 15 minutes. I'll see you over at the next session. Thank you all for attending, and goodbye.